welcome back to another book review. Today I am taking on Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. I'm going to start by saying there's no real way I can spoil this book, so our format's going to be a little different. It'll be different also in the way of there is no inlet. There is no description of the book. So I guess, if I can, the proper way to start this book is to read the very first page, which I think is actually very important. Nothing in this book is known to be true. It's a reflection on what I've noticed, not facts so much as thoughts. Some ideas may resonate, others may not. If you may awaken an inner knowing you forgot you had. Use what's helpful, let go of the rest. Each of these moments is an invitation to further inquiry, looking deeper, zooming out or in, opening possibilities for a new way of being. Okay. That so perfectly summarizes this book. Rick Rubin is not claiming to be a deep philosopher, even though he is. I didn't know a whole lot about Rick Rubin. I know he's a legendary music producer. He's worked with the Beastie Boys, Jay-Z, Mac Miller, Kendrick Lamar. I mean, just countless artists. But he's also famous for saying, like, I know nothing about music. I can't play an instrument. I don't know anything about a soundboard. He's a guy that people bring in to just be around. And his vibe and the way he thinks is what artists want. So let me start by saying, I think anyone who considers themselves a creative or a creator needs to read this book. If you have, I think the thing that makes this book so special to me is I've never felt more understood as a person than when I read this book. This was like having a conversation with someone, a mentor, especially as a male figure, that I never knew I needed to have, but it was so fulfilling because the way Rick Rubin sees the world is so incredibly special. So let's get into it. He first off starts by saying everyone creates, no matter what you do, and I've said that for a long time. So immediately I resonate with what he's saying, which is your whole life should be a creative act. Your life should be creation because that's what we are. We are creation of the universe, and he talks about how our connectedness to it is the reason we have creativity, imagination, and why ideas seem to flow through us. He touches on why it seems like if you have an idea in your head for a song, a video, a book, or whatever, and you don't act on that thought, you'll see that later and go, that was my idea. And he goes, it's because it's not us necessarily as the creators that are special. We are vessels to be used by the highest power of creation to speak for that power and envelop an audience with a story or a song or an art piece or something that makes you feel that connection to whatever it is that makes us uniquely passionate about life. You know, for some people it's art, some people it's pottery, some people it's books, it's movies, it's songs, some people it's a collection of different things. And I love to see Rick Rubin's insight just on how he looks, not just at the world, because this is how he looks at the world, but so intricately at music where he goes, nothing is off limits. There's no rules, right? And he talks a lot about rules and how rules are usually just more deeply ingrained and they're not even real, but we all live by these set of rules that we don't even necessarily we're not aware of them, but we just agree to do certain things and we agree that there are some things we'll never do. And he's constantly challenging us to look outside of those limits and catch ourselves when we're living by rules that may not necessarily fit where we are or fit what our inspiration is calling to tell us to do. His way of finding approval, I think is important for all creators because his thing with art, regardless of what the project is, it's not your responsibility to be successful or for a project to be received well by an audience. It's your job as a creator to work on a project, give it the time that it's due, and also respect when it's finished, and then present that out to people, to the world, not to people for their review, but give it to the world as a gift, and then get back to work. It's not your job to sit around and look at numbers. Like Rick Rubin's never gone to an award show, even though he's won multiple Grammys. It's not about the result. And that's what I think so many people in the creative community could gain is it's not about the book sales. It's not about the YouTube numbers. It's not about what list did you get on this week or whatever. It's like, it's about creating something that you feel so passionate about that you can't sleep at night if you're not actively working towards that thing. He acknowledges that not everyone has that burning passion and desire, but he believes, and I also believe, that it's most people. Most people have a thing that they know they should be doing with their life. Rick Rubin does a great job of stripping away all judgment from yourself, the process, the industry of whatever it is that you think is holding you back, self-doubt. He talks about how everything is energy, which you guys know I've long since believed. He quotes Ram Dass, if you guys want to know kind of not Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, I'm sorry. And he quotes that part where he's like, if you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. He's like, so if you squeeze an orange, lemon juice isn't going to come out. It's whatever is in something is that's going to come out when it's been squeezed. Right? So when pressure is applied to something, that's when you're going to find out what something's really made of and what it is. You can dress it up however you want. And that's what Rick Rubin is ultimately saying. Like, we are who we are from a child. And he talks a lot about returning to childish like play, childish like non-judgment, where you're allowing yourself to flow through life without thinking, oh, I have to do this way because I have to fall in this line to get my mortgage and all this. He's like, he's stripping yourself away from all that. Now, he acknowledges sometimes you may have to work to, provide for your craft. And again, it's not that you're doing whatever you're doing so that one day you can do it full time. He's like, you're doing what you're doing because you have no other choice. When you live this life, when you feel called to constantly be working on art for the world or projects or creations, videos, songs, whatever, like there are those of us that it is a primal pull to that. Sitting behind a desk is nauseating physically and causes mental health problems. And he talks about some of that, where it's like you have to practice constantly being mindful of what is the world trying to speak to you. A lot of times we think of the world sending us messages and synchronized numbers and stuff like that, which, I definitely believe that it can. And he talks about some of that too, where he's like, haven't you ever noticed on days when you're acting within your fullest authentic self, you start to see more synchronicities and things where you're like, oh, I was just talking about that. I was just thinking about that. And things just start to kind of work. I think his ideas of collaboration are interesting. As a creator, I'm not always good with collaboration because I kind of like things done the way I like them done. I'm kind of rigid in some ways where I'm very loosey-goosey in others, and he talks about that. He talks about artists and their vices, which obviously I connect to that as an alcoholic, and I've had my issues in my life. I appreciated the portion of the book where he's making it very known, like a mindset rule that you go into every project has to be that you are not creative, you are not a creator because of a mindset you can achieve by a substance, a meditation, whatever. It's your natural core of being. So it helps, and I think he will help a lot of artists. I think this is probably a message he tried to send to Mac Miller, which is you are so special without all those drugs, right? Now he acknowledges drugs and stuff like that, the battles that artists face usually come from having to repress such heavy emotions that they can't function in life with such heaviness weighing on them. So they use the drugs to get them to the place where, okay, now I can be creative. That pain still lives there, and that's what draws all the passion and all the, that's why they feel so inclined to create. But he's like, you have to find a way to honor that instead of run from it. And, he doesn't judge. He lets everyone be who they are. He's worked with plenty of artists that have died of overdoses and stuff like that. But I think that's why he's such a good person to listen to this from. Because, guys, he's been in the room with the most successful people that have ever lived. He's seen how they work in their most vulnerable times. And so, like, you're getting the keys to success from a man who's been in the room creating the things that are the most notable in the world. Like, you guys probably don't even know how many songs that Rick Rubin has produced and been a part of, or is not even credited on, but was given a ring to be like, hey, man, I need you to listen to this. Like, he's the guy that people go to. The people of the world go to. Just because he's able to sit and totally detach. I loved it when he said they'll sit in the studio and everyone's taking just meticulous notes on everything. Turn the snare up here, bring the hook in a little higher here. And he goes, we will sit through every single one of those changes in every variation. So we'll just take the hi-hat louder. And then we'll put the hi-hat back and just turn the hook up a little bit more. And then we'll do them all together and we'll listen to them and we'll decide which one is the best. Not because I said it, because the artist said it, because the writer said it, but it's like, we want the best that there is. How do we find the best that there is? Not because we want to sell number one hits or because we want to whatever, but like, because I owe it to the world to give the absolute best. As a creator, everything he said is just so freeing. It's so non-judgmental. It's surrendering. It's just being authentically yourself. And I think the most beneficial thing I took from the book is when he talks about your mindset, or you as your awareness being like a cloud, where a cloud doesn't, it doesn't try to fit itself into a situation. If it needs to be a cloud, it'll be a cloud. If it evaporates and falls and becomes a lake for a while, it does that. And then it'll feed other streams for a while, but then it'll evaporate and become a cloud again. Like, it's ever flowing with what nature, he's big on nature, with what nature needs. Bird patterns. You can tell there's been many times in his life where he's just sat and watched birds. He talks about birds a lot, where it's like they're just by nature following the flow that life gives them. That they're not thinking about it when they get hit by a car or something like that. They're not even thinking about, cars and stuff like. They just have a natural glide pattern that they're going on. And he's like, it's only through intervention and things like that life gives you new awarenesses or situations where then you just stay receptive to them. What is life giving me right now? What can I learn from this? What can I use to create? What is the weather like? What sounds can I hear? All these things creative people use to then set a scene for a song or a movie or a book or whatever. And that moment that could have been the worst day of your life now becomes the opening scene or the big plot twist scene in whatever it is you're creating. But it's turning madness into magic, but not on purpose so that you get some kind of financial or status gain from it. It's keeping art wholesome. It's keeping creativity honest. And I genuinely believe this book should be read by anyone who creates anything. I think it's so special. I think everyone should read this book. Even if you don't consider yourself a creative, I bet you might after you read this book. So I am happily giving this one 5 out of 5 stars. Rick Rubin, I love this book very, very much. It's an easy read, 400 pages. It's broke down to where some of the pages literally only have like a couple words on them. So it's a super easy read. You can knock it out in a couple hours. I started at like 1 in the afternoon, and even with filming all day, editing, clipping stuff up, going to get my kids, hanging out with her, I still finished it by like 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. So it's a super easy read. Guys, go grab it. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next review.